All right. I believe we are now live. Okay, yes, we are live. Welcome everyone to Workflow Live. This is a recurring webinar series that is all about helping you build better workflows, where we have real firm owners just like you share the workflows that they're implementing in their firm so you can actually implement and improve the workflows in your firm. And the best part about this is we're not just going to cover a workflow today. We're going to go detail like why we built it the way we built it, but you're not just going to see it. If you like what you see, you're going to be actually able to download it and implement it in your firm. And if you're a Financial Sense user, you can actually add this workflow to your account with just a few clicks. Because ultimately, what we're trying to do with this workflow live and recurring webinar series is to help the accounting industry elevate their workflows through collaboration and inspiration with other firms. So I do have a favor to ask. If you like what you see today, if you're a Financial Sense user, I'd ask that you actually go to your Financial Sense account and share workflows to the template library, because the more you share, the more others will share. And then we could even potentially have you on here on the Workflow Live series, like we have Stephen here today. And if you haven't heard about our workflow template library, I'm going to drop it real quick in the chat. Let me drop this here. This is our workflow template library where hundreds of other accounting firms have shared their workflow. So if you want to get inspiration on any type of process that you use in your firm, there's hundreds of different processes there. You can see how other firms are actually doing their workflows and get other inspiration outside of today's session. But today we have Stephen Mose. He's the owner of Mose in Tax Accounting. He's going to be sharing his workflow, 1040 workflow with us today. But one special note is if you see his background, it's actually his birthday today too. So we're excited that he's able to make time for us and still come on today and talk to everyone and share what he's doing in his firm. Thanks for joining us, Stephen.
Thank you, Sharam. Yeah, birthday day today, and I'll tell you what, it's exciting to be able to do this on my birthday. It's really special for me, so I'm excited to get started.
Yeah,
Let me.
we're excited to have you. So tell us a little bit about the firm before we jump in, though. Tell us like how many people are at the firm, the type of work you like to focus on, or anything else that you think would be interesting to share.
Yeah, well, we're coming up on 1 year. I just acquired a practice from a retiring CPA in my area. So at this point, it is me, and I've got one part-time accountant that helps me with the tax and accounting. The bulk of the practice is 1040 tax returns. I also do maybe a third business returns, maybe, and
Mm-hmm.
then all those business returns also have owners as well. Um, my favorite, honestly, is the businesses. I think the accounting, I'd say debits and credits, is kind of my second language. So I do like that the best, but being the fact that 1040s are a bulk of my practice, that's why this workflow has gotten so much attention. Um, and yeah,
Awesome.
getting getting ready for year number 2.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. Well, we're excited to jump in. I've looked at the workflow. You built a really good one, so I think there's going to be a lot of value today for the people listening in.
Excellent. All right, ready to get started, and let me share.
And if you guys have anyone that's listening in, if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. As we go along, we'll try to get to those questions.
Okay, is that coming through? All right, perfect. So in the description, I guess it's not here. In the template library, you'll see the description for the workflow. And one thing I really like about workflow tools, especially Financial Sense, is the visibility to you and your team, or me and my team. I already said my team is only one, so it's a little bit different. But everybody knowing where a project is huge. So I built this workflow primarily to illustrate the back and forth nature of engagements. We contact a client, ask them for something, they'll send it to us, we'll review it. Inevitably, we'll have some questions or follow-up that we need. So then we pass it back to them. They then follow up with the information. We'll prepare the return. We'll send it to them maybe to review or discuss. Then they'll approve and authorize. Then we'll submit. So it really goes back and forth, and making sure everybody's clear on whose ball the court, or whose court the ball is in, I think is super important. Um, And in a way, I think that simplifies the process. There's a lot of steps to this workflow. If I just scroll down, um, many steps. So simple might not be the first thing you think of, but that's why there's so many sections. If you look at one section at a time and just ignore the rest, then I think it becomes a lot simpler. So we start with engaging the client. Um, After, I already said about 1 year of owning this practice, I'm already thinking of some things I want to change. One of them is reaching out to clients earlier in the year. Um, Last year was a transition period, so it was pressed for time. But this year, I'm going to get out in front of it. I'm going to send client engagement letters probably in early November, get the conversation started. Um, and just at the beginning, the ball is in my court. I send it off to the client. Now it's in their court. I've been using Financial Sense and Adobe Sign for engagement letters. So this would be a client task, set up those automatic reminders, and as soon as they send it back, I'll get notified. Then it's my turn. Ball's back in my court. I'm going to
Hmm.
reach out to the client for year-end tax planning. Some may
Great.
need it, some may not.
I have a question about the engagement letter. So when you
Yeah.
send the engagement letter to the clients in November, do you usually try to like collect the payment information up front, or do you wait to collect that, or do you try to collect that when you try to collect the payment after you complete the return?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I'm in a transition period. So
Hmm.
my ideal state would be a predetermined fee, kind of fixed fee, flat fee pricing, and communicate that up front. And as soon as they agree, that would be my ideal time to collect payment. Like I said, I acquired this practice, so these
Yeah,
clients are already used to a certain process, and I want to respect that. So I'm identifying the clients that I think are more open to that kind of thing and starting with them. But at this point, I don't think I've collected payment up front from more than 3 or 4 clients. The rest are still paying at the end.
yeah, and that's pretty common. I see that a lot too when people are whether they're transitioning that model or like in your situation, they start with like the clients that it's easier to start with, and then it makes it easier to kind of roll it out across the client base as you go.
Yep. And new clients, I'm trying
Yeah,
as hard as I can any new clients that are coming in to start them on my terms, so to speak.
makes sense.
Um, yeah, and so going back to the workflow, year-end tax planning. Again, some are going to need it, some are not, but getting that conversation started in early November, that'll give us, at least a couple months to make any moves we need to before the end of the year. Um, Ideally, I've started with the client last year or worked with the client the year before and had some estimated payments already calculated for them. This would give me another opportunity to reevaluate that. Maybe we can skip it. Maybe we need to increase it, something like that. I add this in here. This is pretty specific for my business clients. They are also small businesses. Not all of them pay themselves a regular salary. So it gives us that opportunity for one year-end bonus, as opposed to another estimated payment. We'll just put through a bonus and up the withholding on the bonus, and then provide the instructions for the client or to the client on what moves to make. Then we can kind of rest easy for a month or two. I send out the organizers then in January. Um, right now, I'm using another tool for electronic organizers, so that's why this step is C instructions. So I upload a PDF file. It's got a link for them to access the other system, their login information, and some instructions. But this one again will ping them. This is another opportunity. Anytime there's a client task, I love the auto reminders.
Yeah,
'Cause I can set it and forget it. And on that note, I'm also prepping clients a lot for that. The ones I want to transition over to Financial Sense, I've got a template email, just another kind of plug for another feature of Financial Sense. I've got an FC portal conversion email template in Financial Sense. And what that talks about is these automated reminders. I call that out. First, I list a bunch of features for the client, right? The secure chat, the request list. I think that's a big benefit for a lot of clients, especially the business owners who like a nice checklist. And then I go into why I think it's great. And I think it's great because of the automatic reminders. I tell them that they should expect them. They should treat those reminders as if they're coming from me, even though it's an automated reminder. Um, And I also say, technology is intended to make things easier. This is intended to increase our communication, but if they feel that it's not quite doing that, they should let me know, and I'll kind of tweak that schedule of reminders for them.
Yeah, definitely. And what's going to be really cool, you're talking. What's the system you're using now for the tax organizers?
I use CCH Access for tax,
Mm-hmm.
and they have had the My 1040 data is what I've been using for electronic organizer.
Mm-hmm.
FYI, though, anybody who uses that and may not be aware, that is expected to sunset in December 2025. So I'm mildly, frantically looking for a new alternative.
Well, I was going to say this is funny because so we find we have a lot of tax firms on the platform, and they're using the client task to send a link to whatever tax organizer system they're using, or even if it's just like a document with questions. So we're actually planning to release a tax organizer and form builder in financial sense. So it'll be much easier to kind of send a templated to organizer, collect documents, get the answers to the questions. It'll be a more seamless experience for the client. But even better, like pulling the information from the tax organizer in those forms and putting it into the CRM fields as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be you might see a level up for this workflow in the coming months, which is exciting.
Yeah, that sounds and perfect timing as well. That sounds great. Yeah, the one hang up with this, speaking to that, is what my clients will do a lot of times is they'll follow the link, they'll go fill out the organizer, everything's great. I'll get a notification from that system, so I don't totally lose track of it,
Yeah,
but then they'll forget to come back in here.
exactly.
Or they'll check this off before they've done anything. They'll see the attached file and they say, okay, I see it, done. And then they'll check it off here. And it might take them weeks to complete the organizer in the other system. So having that all together would be great.
Yeah, 100%.
Excellent. Yeah. So then I think one thing my clients always would ask too is, especially in that other system, they'd hit submit, and on the screen it says thank you, but they'd get no other confirmation. And a lot of people like to know that once they send something out into the ether, that it actually ends up somewhere. So that's why I put this task in here to notify the client that the organizer was received. And that's where automations in financial sense with the automated emails, that can be great. I don't even really have to do anything, just check that box, email will fire off, and they get that kind of personal touch to know that I've got the information, it's in my hands, and we move on. Talking a little bit about how I use financial sense, and I want to say this before I forget. I always say it's easier to edit than create. So hopefully I've done the hard part and created something. I call it the Stephen Mose method. It may work for you, it may not, but hopefully it's a starting point for you to tweak it to your specific needs. So that's why I do want to dive into why these steps are here. Update project start date. I don't know if that's necessarily the way everybody else uses start date or the way it was intended to, but I like that start date to be, okay, I've got all the information I need from the client to start the project, and then that kind of starts the clock. So I can go back in time and see the spread between, okay, when was I able to start and when did I finish?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much of a when do I want to start, it's when am I able to start. And then we review that we review the client upload, send an open item list. That's, again, going back to the back and forth nature. They sent me some information. Chances are I didn't get quite all of it, or something they sent me was new and I need a follow-up question. So then I toss it back to them for questions and open items. This is something I learned from another template in the template library. So, my personal experience of going to the template library, poking around a little bit, seeing other people's ideas and making them my own. Extend. I know some CPAs will extend all their returns as soon as they're able to. They may finish all of their returns by April 15th, but they do the extensions up front to just make sure that no deadline is missed. So I kind of like that process, and I wanted to throw that in here because I waffled about how to put in a step for extension when not every client gets extended. That just felt clunky, and I couldn't figure out how to really integrate that. So I added a step, and I think I'm just going to extend no matter what. So that's why this piece is in here. Review for Washington State capital gains tax, that's obviously not specific to me, but specific to Washington State or people with clients in Washington State. Relatively new, and if you're not paying close attention, it can get missed. So that's why that's in here. Clients that I know I'm not going to be able to finish, and we all can pinpoint those clients, the ones who are going to be waiting for a K1 until September 14th, or something like that. I'll go ahead and calculate an extension payment, sometimes not required, and then go ahead and extend the return. Then I'll jump right into prepare the return. I can see now I do have a duplicate here, so that's all right. I'm willing to admit my mistakes. But double check for this kind of thing. Again, me personally, it's new, so maybe having it in there twice is good because I do not want to miss it. I do have state returns. Not a lot of my clients have state returns because we are in Washington State, except for now the Washington capital gains return or capital gains tax. And then review the return, right? So I do want to point out one thing. I didn't focus too much on these assignments and roles over here, mostly again because I'm one CPA working with a part-time accountant. So between the two of us, we have a pretty good handle on who's doing what. So I guess you can kind of make this specific to your firm. I think everybody's going to have different people they want doing different things. I bring that up because a lot of these I'm preparing and I'm reviewing. So that's why some of these steps, review has a few extra steps in here because I don't want to forget to do these steps. As I mentioned, I use CCH. So I've got the Pro System FX tax planner that I kind of quasi prepare the return in parallel to CCH Access. And if they both say the same thing, I'm basically inputting in one, inputting in the other, calculating, and if they come out the same, then I got a pretty high degree of confidence that I didn't make a typo, that I didn't leave anything off. So that's a nice double check for me. I clear or sign off all diagnostics, look at the client letter. I think that's super important. When I first started out in my career, one of the CPAs that I worked with, they harped on the letter so much, and it really got ingrained in my head that if a client's not going to read, if the client's going to read anything, they're going to read your letter. So make sure that letter says what you want it to say, and all that you need to say. And then I always go page by page with the prior year return, checking ID numbers, addresses, answers to questions, things like that. And at that point, there may still be wrap-up questions and open items. I can go through all of that. And just an example off the top of my head might be you got a client with a rental Schedule E. And you work so hard on figuring out the numbers, and I may have totally forgotten to ask about 1099s. So as I'm going through page by page, I see last year they said, yep, we made payments that required 1099s. This year I've got that question mark no. Okay, I can review the return. I can finish everything else. If that's the only open question, I'll fire it back to my client real quick for wrap-up questions. Sorry, that's probably loud. They'll come back to me with the answer. Then I can review the return with the client. I make it on a screen share and review it live with them. Or I may use Financial Sense. I'll upload it to the portal and have them review it. And that's actually a first client task. I didn't always have this task in the review and authorize section. I just had the download, print, sign, and return the signature forms. But I wanted a place for clients to affirmatively say, yes, I've looked at it. And I know it doesn't see my A as much as I might want it to, but I think it will hopefully at least give the client that second to pause and say, maybe I should look at it before they check that box. And then if they do, then and they bring up something, I can always ask them, well, did you have a chance to look at it before you signed it? And then we get to the very end, submit. So yeah, we submit it. That'll change the status. I haven't talked too much about the statuses, so I'll kind of come back to that here just when I'm second. This will flip it to an e-file submitted status. Then when I get the notification from the system that it's accepted, that's when I come in here check return accepted, that's when the project is completely closed. But talking about the tags, I call them statuses. I think statuses and tags in FC are kind of interchangeable. I've actually turned a couple of them on client visible, and most specifically the client info received and waiting on client. And the waiting on client, that will automatically turn on when I send a client task, which I really love. That's my red light. Red light means we can't do anything. We're stopped. The ball is in the client's court. And then when we get the information back, I flip that, turn off the waiting for client information, turn on the client info received. That's our green light. If there's a green light, that means ball is in our court. We've got what we need to proceed. And I want the client to see those. I want the client to know we're waiting on you. A couple other big high-level tags that I have on. Before we get the engagement letter back, I've got a pre-engagement letter status, or a pre-engagement status. That's not client visible. I do have a year-end planning status. Then I've got an in-process status, and I've got a wrap-up status that comes once I get done reviewing the return. Then we're in wrap-up, and then from wrap-up to the end, that'll stay. But those are all visible to the client as well, so they know, at least at a high level. They can't see all of the sections in my workflow, but they can see at a high level what general stage of the process we're in.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm actually curious because I don't know if a lot of people know about that. Drop it in the chat for the people that are listening in. Did you know that you could make the tags visible to your clients, or like the stage that the project is in? Because it's something that's easy to overlook, but a lot of people haven't noticed it. And it's really good because now your client, when they come into the portal and they're looking at the request list, they know the status of the work without having to ask you for it, which is great. Yeah, so you can see right here, you have the visible to client options for your tags. And what this does is now when it's active on the project, that status, they'll see that status on the client portal side. So that's really great. Really good piece to mention, because I think a lot of people are underutilizing that piece.
Totally. And I guess you caught me again. I said I had turned these on. I must not have. I'll fully admit, this is an iterative process. It always is. Nothing is perfect forever. So this workflow here that I'm showing is not actually the workflow that I used for the 2024 tax season. So again, to be honest, it's always a work in development.
Yeah, I'm curious, how many times have you iterated it?
At least 6 or 8.
Yeah, which is normal. When I talk to a lot of firms, it's important, the workflows are a living and breathing document. It's not going to be perfect the first time. And if you try to perfect it the first time, you're just never going to get it done. So it's just build something, use it, make improvements, tweak as you go, as you use it, learn from the process. It's an iterative process.
Yep,
Definitely.
absolutely. And as much as we all want nice, clear lanes to go down with our clients and consistent processes, every client is different. These are human beings that we're working with, on the other end of that phone or the other side of the screen. So it has to evolve. It can't be static. But I love the idea of a template, right? Because that's your consistent starting spot. I'm going to try to start you down this road and try to keep you there as much as possible. But if we need to deviate, I call it a loose structure. We can deviate if needed, but it gives you a starting point. So that's basically it for the steps. I wanted to touch real quick on the resources, and this is the template in my system. I did not add the resources to the template in Financial Sense because these are pretty specific to my clients or my practice. So I've got a link to the SOP document. That's just a Word doc that's shared in my Office 365 organization. The client file index, I've got a certain naming convention, a certain folder structure that I want to maintain. So that's all documented in the client file index. And then the interview tax organizer, again, this is where I can't fit all clients into the same box. I've got clients who are quite a bit older. met with a client the other day who's 94 years old, and to expect them to fly around the electronic organizer and upload and download documents, it's just not always realistic. So I've got the interview tax organizer. That is a link. I'm a heavy Microsoft user, so I use Microsoft Forms for this one. But like Sharon was saying, if something comes up in Financial Sense, that might be a great tool too. But what that is, it's a form that I can pull up. I'm on the phone with the client, and it lets me walk through the questions, so I don't have to be marking on a PDF or trying to frantically take notes somewhere that it's not easy to. And I built, the logic into the organizer. So if they say, yes, I sold my house, and of course there's follow-up questions, and no, it'll skip those. So that's what this is. And I wanted to share it again just as an idea, because when I first started using Financial Sense, I thought, well, resources, what does that even mean? What can I put there? And again, in the iterative process, my accountant assistant often would ask me, how do you want me to save this file, or where do you want me to save it? So I said, oh, shoot, well, I should probably create a file index and just add that to every 1040 engagement, and then it's easy to get to. She doesn't have to ask that question again. And if I need to make a change, to that, right, it's changed on the back end, I don't know, it really creates a lot of, or eliminates a lot of unneeded communication, a lot of back and forth between us when I can just stick it here and kind of make it self-serve.
No, that's great.
And I think that's about it. It's a mouthful.
Okay. No, this is great. Really good walkthrough. Looks like, let me just double check. Christina is wondering if you can share your file index.
Yeah, let me take a look quick. I think you're still seeing the other screen. Let me just make.
Yeah, we're still seeing the other screen.
Okay, I had one client ID here, so let me switch.
And if there's any other questions out there, please feel free to drop them in the chat or the Q&A section.
Okay, you're seeing my Excel doc now?
Yes.
Okay. So again, work in process. It's a little messy. These two columns are kind of my core. These are the files that I save in my file, like my work papers, and then these I just have a separate file for client copy. And I'm an Excel geek, so we can always chat offline about that. But I've got it built in. I can just type in the client ID and the tax year. Maybe it's next year, and these all auto update. At that point, I'm able to copy from here, go over to the file, and rename it to be exactly what I want. File names are the thing I'm most concerned about. I do have the folder structure here, I guess. This again, every client is a little bit different. Some have only 1040 engagements. Some have 1040 engagements and gift tax returns or a trust return. So it does have to change a little bit. But I always have a prior year folder. I again bought this practice from a CPA who'd worked with these clients for several years. I don't need 15 years of folders, so I tuck back anything that's older than 5 years in a prior year file just to kind of clean up my space. And then each folder has its year. I've got my client copy folder. Like I said, that's where I save what I've sent to the client. I have a PBC docs prepared by client or provided by client docs temp folder. That's where everything they give me gets put in there. And then as I process it, I move it out into my tax work paper folder. There might be research. Everybody's got a permanent file. And then for business clients, they'll have a QuickBooks folder as well. So not too much in the folder structure, but maybe this file naming convention can be useful to somebody.
At what point do you create the file structure?
I have, this might not be the best way, but I've just got a temporary folder. I create the structure, like a template structure that I can just copy and paste. So right now I've got the 2025 structure already created. And for certain clients, I've already started working on 2025 work plan and planning. So some already have a 2025 folder, some don't. But I will, an engagement letter time, because that's when I got to start saving folders out there. So I guess that engagement letter process, step one would be create the 2025 folder structure.
So once the engagement is signed, then you create the folder structure?
Yeah, I was going to say last year that wasn't quite true because I saved the engagement letters in each client file
Yeah.
first before I sent it. But this year I do think I'm going to wait until I get that received, the signed letter received before I create it.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because, like we've recently released like uh, the engagement letters. You can send in financial sense now, but there's like automations we're wanting to tie to it, right? Like for example, like there's the invoice creation, but there's also like proposal signed, create tax return, proposal signed, create folder structure. Those are all options, and I'm wondering if like those would be great automations that we could have in the future to potentially level up the workflow.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And man, if I could just add, I do use the Financial Sense portal to deliver returns. Um, so you'd probably have some way to create a new 2025 folder in my client copy folder in Financial Sense.
100%. Yeah, and then like integrate it if you use like Google Drive or OneDrive, so it'd be in both systems. And like we
Sounds great.
talked about before, people hopped on the delivery process too, like locking the return behind a paywall. If you're wanting to like work on like shortening that accounts receivable, and then like a better embedded e-signature. So we use Adobe now, but it's not as good as we want. Like an embedded, like collect payment, view return, sign return, all in one flow for the client. Would be there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do on the tax side because there's all these like little manual things that you can automate, and create a much more seamless experience for both the client and the firm.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And that, boy, I'll echo that last comment. I mean, we're a people business, a service provider, so it's great to make things nice and easy for us. But well, not enlightenment, but true transcendence comes when you make things easier for the client too.
Yeah, 100%. Wow. Okay. If there was any more questions, please drop them in now. Charlotte, if you could share Steven's template, if just in case. So you can see it now on the bottom right-hand side. If you like Steven's template, you want to add it to your own account. If you're a Financial Sense user, you can do that there. Or if you're not, you can download it to Excel file. But Steven, I really want to thank you for joining us today. This was a great session, very thorough 1040 process. And I want to remind everyone, we try to do this recurring series to help people collaborate and share ideas. Like Steven was talking about, he got ideas for this template from going to the template library. So go check out the template library too. If you like what you see, we highly suggest you sharing your workflows. We're all in this together. We want to elevate the industry together. And Stephen, I really appreciate you making the time to contribute today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I'm so happy to be part of the FC community.
Yeah. And happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Take care. We'll be going off live in a second.